learn a bit about like extruding. We're gonna we're gonna learn some basic sketching things about sketching. So to create a sketch, you go here and you can select a plane. So you'll just start with the bottom plane. We have our create, modify, and constraints tabs. The create tab is for like creating shapes. So you have your line, rectangular, circle, arc, polygon, mirror, circular pattern, rectangular pattern, all this stuff. We have our alt scripts that I'll talk about later, project that I'll talk about later, and sketch dimension. So you can see if you for each like shape, there's like sub shapes. Like there's 2-point rectangle, 3-point rectangle, center rectangle. For example, center rectangle is like this. You select the center point, and the rectangle will be centered around that point. Or you can pick like a 2-point rectangle. We can go like this. You can select 1 point and a second point. You can play around with those a little bit if you want. So you can start with drawing some like basic shapes. So like if I wanted to draw a rectangle, say I wanted to draw like a 5x5 rectangle, how would I do that? So you see I have these little input boxes. I can type 5 and then 5. To get from one box to another, you just hit tab. Yeah, so you can do that, and these are just sketch dimensions. That is this tool down here. So basically, sketch dimensions give your shaped geometry. So like, give them numerical values. So say I can change this to 7, I can change this to 10, and yeah. So there's many things you can do with sketch dimension. You can also sketch dimension angles. For example, if I wanted to make a line here to here, and I wanted to make this 45 degree with this, I could select these two and 45, or yeah, 45, and it'll make a 45 degree angle here. One thing we need to learn about sketches are difference between blue lines and black lines. So you can see here, this one is a blue line, this is a black line. A black line basically means it's fully constrained. What fully constrained means is that the sketch isn't movable. So you see this one, how I can move it around and stuff? That means it's not fully constrained, because if I add a dimension here, say 45, now I can't move it around. So, yeah. Say I didn't dimension this side, these sides wouldn't be blue, because look, I can drag it around. Another way to see if your sketch is fully constrained is from here. So you can see right now, if everything is fully constrained, the sketch will have a lock symbol on it. And if it's not fully constrained, it won't. So another thing we need to learn about is our constraints. So in our constraint menu, we have all these different constraints. We have like horizontal, coincident, tangent, equal, parallel, perpendicular, fixed, unfixed, midpoint. You can hover over these to figure out what they all do. They're pretty useful. For example, when you create a rectangle, Fusion automatically makes some constraints for you. So Fusion automatically makes this one a horizontal line. You can see this is horizontal, and this is a vertical line. So say I took away this constraint. Now I can do this to it. But if I set the horizontal constraint back, there, it's back to being a rectangle. Yeah. So we also have some other tools here that we'll get into later in our lessons. So these are the mirror, circular pattern, rectangular pattern are also some really useful tools. So for example, say I had a circle here, and I have one circle here. I wanted to draw this circle like 10 times around this. I wouldn't have to manually copy. Yeah, what's dimension this? So I would have to like manually copy and paste this one and dimension it all over again. But the useful way to do it is just using circular pattern, center point, and then I can choose the amount of holes I want. This is useful for like say a motor mounting, which we'll get into later as well. You can do the same with rectangular pattern. You can just go like this. yeah, you can see it just creates a rectangular pattern. You can input your different numbers to create a pattern. Yeah, mirror is pretty self-explanatory. Say I wanted to mirror this line across here, it would just mirror it to the other side. Yep. You guys can try drawing some basic shapes, like trying playing with the polygon. You might wonder, why do we dimension and constrain everything? So we dimension and constrain everything because it keeps our designs parametric, and the bigger your designs get, the more complicated they get. For example, like this, the more complicated they get. Say I wanted to change like one small dimension. If everything wasn't fully constrained, then changing one thing might break your whole sketch, which means you have to redo a lot of things. So keeping your sketches fully constrained is a good habit to have. So we can think of dimensions as something that have a numerical value. So like say I wanted to have this to be 10, but constraints are things without a numerical value. Say this corner I want it to be 90 degrees. I can use the perpendicular constraint, or I can use a horizontal and vertical constraint. That's what constraints are used for and dimensions are used for.